What I'm going to share with you are some of my explorations throughout this world. Most of these pertain specifically to the environment and what's happening out there. Trip down memory lane for me. I'm going to start with So I'm going across Drake's Passage, the most treacherous body of water in the world, and I'm thinking back about the extraordinary explorers who have come before me. Shackleton, John Falcon Scott, Isabella Bird, just over 100 years ago, seeing this place for the first time. And now here I am, less than 100 years ago, 100 years later, witnessing its slow death. Less than 100 years. This is what we've done. This is what's happening to our planet. Those are small penguins in the bottom right-hand corner just behind that blue iceberg. That was probably the most difficult thing in Antarctica, was scale. But what happens in 6 degrees warms in the Antarctic Peninsula, what does that mean to the Sudan? What does it mean to the people that live there? When drought becomes famine, and the ecological disaster that is Darfur. Even if Darfur was to be halted today, it is an absolute economic apocalypse. What does it mean to stand before this man, to kneel, to look into his eyes, for him to have the dignity to give me this photograph? As we redefine what is photography, not taking photographs like non-profit. This is not something I take from this man. These images, to me, are given. It is almost a collaboration that occurs between myself and the people that I'm photographing. And to see them and to view them with dignity and with compassion in someone's most harrowing moments of their life. And I'm there to bear witness. What is the responsibility that we have? What is the responsibility that I have with this young girl's life? She just finished saying her last rites to her husband, who's in that tent back behind the family. To say that she faces an uncertain future is a vast understatement. I'm pretty much always working alone in these situations. An interpreter sometimes is there, sometimes is not. But the idea is to bring back these images, to bring them from that third world, to bring that from that place back to what is our space, bring them back to the center of our media, to our Time magazines, to our Newsweeks, to indeed today our new ideas of technology and how these images are going to be consumed in the future. How do we translate these stories into the experience of today when we look at the old models and we're looking for new? At first, I reversed the image of a concept of a zoo, and I took my cage out to the polar bears. There's about a 7 to 10 day window once a year when you can actually view the polar bears, so they collect and gather in this one spot. So it was a different perspective looking through my bars at him who is free. Many of the Inuit are said now to be incarnating through the polar bears to experience their last days. The bears are slowly starving to death. This is where they first gather, waiting for this to freeze over. The problem is that it's taking longer for this ice to freeze over, and it's thawing earlier, so the bears, instead of having 3.5 months to feed, to mate, are now having 2.5 months. It was such an honor to be there, to witness, to see the eyes of something that doesn't look like an animal looking back at me, that looks more human to me. And to feel the rage and the sorrow. It was a collection of other photographers, maybe 6, who were on this tundra buggy. We had to protect ourselves. We were up high, about 6 feet, and this bear wandered over incredibly close. The woman next to me wasn't making any photographs. And to me, I was a photojournalist, so I'm there working with my short lenses. They have the big, long 600mm bazookas. So for me, it was an incredible opportunity. And I asked the woman next to me, well, why aren't you photographing this bear? I mean, this bear to me so perfectly exemplifies their struggle. And she looks at me and she says, well, the bear's not perfect. I'm not going to be able to sell him. And I'm just thinking to myself, my God, so he's just a pelt to you. And what is it about this struggle that I'm seeing in a different way? Their plight is our plight. And all of us being one, this unified soul. And these 2 bear cubs, I mean, each one of their paws are perfectly lifted in the front and the back without looking at one another. There's a language that they speak. You can see how thin the bears are. Look at his stomach. This is a piece I did for Vanity Fair for the Green Issue. These are, of course, done from the helicopters. I'd never get access on land. There's no way Massey would let me or anyone from the magazine anywhere near it. Worked with a lot of incredible people. People just like many of you in this room who are struggling themselves to have their voice be heard. Bill travels up and down the entire East Coast telling what's happening to Cayford and what his town used to look like in 1951 and what it looks like now when everything's gone. Judy Bonds, the director of Coal River Mountain Watch, and her beautiful mountains painted on the side of the building. And people so embedded, so ingrained, that they're tattooing what the mountains used to look like onto their arms before this started coming out of their kitchen sink. These are water samples. When they wash the coal, there's something called coal slurry, coal sludge. Billions of gallons worth of this toxic water, this sludge that they don't know what to do with. So Massey started loading it into the, capped off the abandoned mines and filled the abandoned mines with this. Of course, all the people are on groundwater. Took a couple of years to get through into their water system, but in the meantime, the people have been drinking this water for 4 years, 5 years. And the coal plants, when they wipe their back porches, this is what they're breathing every day. This is what's on their back porches. And a young girl who would never be able to have children, and whose legs are atrophied. By the time they finally got the water tested in their house, it took them almost 3 years to do so. This is what had been pouring into it. It's 500 times the toxicity of accepted levels. Inside their home, when I walked in, my lungs actually seized. They couldn't use any of the water that was in their homes. I brought probably 15 gallons of water with me. These are pennies that have been left out in their laundry room for only a week. They can't sell their home. They've lost all the equity. It used to be worth $300,000-$400,000. Now they couldn't sell it for $12,000 because no one's going to buy this home. There's nowhere for them to go. They have to live inside this place. And the pills that Billy Sammons has to take once a month. He's a retired sheriff. And this is his only boy, who's been passing kidney stones since the age of 5. And can only go outside once a week. Because while his body was growing and developing when he was young, he was drinking and consuming that water without them knowing it. Sometimes a story I reflect back and it seems like something we should be seeing in some other, forgive me, third world. But this is happening in our own backyard in West Virginia. A number of stories in the environment are also about the after effects of war. I first stepped back into history, looking at where these mines came from, what was originally the killing fields. I looked at the faces, the portraits that were staring straight into this photographer from Tuslang prison where 19,000 people went in and 7 people emerged alive. The portraits were straight, direct into the camera. And this foreshadowed what I would do with the portraits and the people that I would photograph from this story. We're living in this country littered with landmines more so than any place in the world. The father with his young boy at the clinic to be seen. They use the coconut to make the veins of the hands so they're more realistic. In the 20 years of my life that I've been covering, what I've been covering from the 2 intifadas, the wars in Bosnia, I started in the streets of Belfast, the genocide in Rwanda for 3 months, apartheid South Africa. All those places should have shaped my vision, but it didn't. Everything is about what we project energetically. And when you think of the slight twist of phrase, the different thought process of what you think emotionally, when you think of this man as a landmine victim, then a couple of hours into this project, after I'd done the other portraits and I started to look at some of these people, and you see this man not as a landmine victim, but as a landmine survivor. And just the essence of that word, survivor, as opposed to victim. Because this man has to give me this image. My interpreter is not there. I do not speak his language. Yet he has to let me in. Why does he let me in? Why does he let any of us in? What is the language that goes on between all of us? the voice that we don't hear, that allows him without a language to allow me to step into that space and to make that image. And for her. She's lost both of her legs, obviously. Her husband left her, taking their 6-month-old, and he's already remarried. And she's here alone, without her child, without a husband, without her legs, working in the killing fields, still to this day, for less than $1 a day, is what she's willing to trade her life for. And yet she has the strength to give me this photograph. That is strength and dignity and power that I'll never know, and I'm so humbled. Beyond words. Because I feel a part of me is in her, and a part of her is in me, as in each and every one of us here. And that becomes the difficulty, is that we see ourselves as separate. We see ourselves as different from that child in Rwanda, from this woman, from the polar bears. All of us are in this world together, obviously. We struggle to find unity. We struggle to find compassion. And we ask ourselves why we care. Why do you care about this woman? Why do I care about her? What drives me to do this kind of work? What drives all of us and all of our voices that are here? Ultimately, it comes down to making a difference and sharing her life with the world. That's the responsibility that I have as a photographer and as a storyteller. The stories that I'm entrusted with. And his eyes as he lets me straight into his soul. I see nothing else when I look at this image. I see nothing else when I look into his eyes, except straight into his soul. And this gift of a photograph. As we walk through this injured world together, we struggle for meaning daily. All of us do. My photographs are my language. So thank you for sharing. And Drummond, thank you for such a beautiful, beautiful event you have here. And your staff, thank you.